Or many of us visit the fuel station frequently to buy energy to help us move, whether it's for our vehicles or our generating set. Fuel station, for those who don't buy fuel directly, they end up patronizing public transport service, which also depends on petrol or diesel. So today we begin a series we've titled My Fuel. This segment will be aired every Monday, and it will look at pricing, safety, challenges, opportunities, and all other issues relating to fuel and fuel products. We're beginning the conversation with the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers and Association of Oil Marketing Companies. Kweku Ajimanjia is Chief Executive of the Association of Oil Marketing Companies. He joins me in the studio. Mr. Ajimanjia, you're welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
We'll be also joined by Skype by Duncan Amwa, who is Executive Director of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. Duncan Amwa, are you there? All right, you join us on Skype shortly. But Mr. Ajimanjia, thank you very much for your time once again. So what are the basics to understand as far as, you know, transactions with fuel, not to even talk about the increases in prices and how we deal with it. But if we talk about, we save my fuel. So we're beginning this conversation because we want to educate people on everything fuel, energy, essentially. From your perspective and from the work that you've done over the years, what would you say are the basics for everybody to know when we're discussing a topic like this?
Well, I think we're talking about fuel. We need to talk about, of course, people really like to talk about the pricing. But we need to talk about safety. We need to talk about how the fuel gets to the station. And we also need to talk about how to use fuel efficiently, you know, so that you don't use fuel in a way which increase your expense that you have to really be thinking about. And also we need to also talk about the kind of policy framework we have in the country as well, you know. So,
okay, in terms of, let me just also quickly announce that Duncan Amwa, who is Executive Director of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, has joined us via Skype. Mr. Amwa, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to Mr. Ajimanjia and your viewers.
Very well. So I was just asking him to share with us his thoughts on what the basics are. For those of us who are not really into fuel, I mean, that way, all we do is buy into our fuel, our tanks, etc. What are the basics to understand? He speaks about pricing, safety, he speaks about efficient use, and then he speaks about framework in the country. I don't think that we can talk about everything right now, but what we can talk about, though, perhaps could be as pricing, which has been one of the things we're dealing with at the moment. I'm interested to find out what goes into pricing.
For what we know, there are three key things that drive pricing, particularly in Ghana. When you talk of pricing, you are talking of how much you and I would eventually pay for fuel at the pump, or for fuel for industrial and other commercial uses. And what we know is that you would need what you call the international market price variable, which is the first step of pricing. And then you would also need your CD dollar exchange variable, which is as a result of the fact that you would buy the commodity or crude or the finished product in dollar, but within the country, Ghana, you cannot sell in dollar, so you price in cedis. The cedi exchange after sale will play a critical role as to whether the business would be able to sustain itself. I'm talking of those who import and those who supply and sell fuel to us. So the cedi becomes a crucial element. And then the third and most defining factor happens to be what you call taxes, margins, and levies or whatever we slap on these products. So off the top of our head, you can say that fuel price international market usually will constitute about 60% or 62% thereabout of entire pricing. The rest would, however, be determined by whether the cedi is stable, how much taxes we are also slapping on the product. Will go a long way to drive final ex-pump pricing.
Okay. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Jumanjia, because I want to also get your perspective. You're the people who are marketing these products. What, from your perspective, goes into the pricing, and is there any chance it would be made any less?
I think what Duncan said, sums it all, and those are the parameters which really come up with the fuel pricing. Of course, the level of competition of the market is also a factor in terms of the OMCs, where they place themselves also becomes a factor. So it makes it, the dynamics of the markets also has effect on the pricing, but sometimes it's not direct. But what he has said in the main are the ones which will influence that. Now, talking about the price, whether it can go down, can go up.
Looking at the variables that you talked about.
Basically, you mentioned of SREF, which is related to the international market. Whatever goes on in the international market is something which can affect us.
Yeah.
If it goes the other way, like the price is going up, obviously it will affect us.
But there have been instances where the prices on the international markets have actually been down, and we were still paying at the same price.
That is the business. You know, when prices are going up, you need to cough money to be able to buy the fuel for the same volume that you want to do that. It's only when price is going down that you make up for what you have actually invested. So you will not have the same proportion decrease. It doesn't happen. You know, because what happens is that, like, let me say this. Let's say Joy FM consumes 100,000 liters in a month, and you are being supplied by an OMC. In order to consistently supply 100,000 liters and the price goes up, there's a cost to it. He has to look for an extra money to be able to buy the fuel and sell it to you, you know, so that you can always have 100,000 liters. So and normally the money is not there, you have to go borrowing. So when the price goes down, proportionally you see that it will come down, but you not get the same 3%, 4%.
I see.
And sometimes the factors that he has mentioned also impinges on the taxes and levies. You know, like remember mid-year we have tax increase. And obviously, once you have tax increase, the OMCs, you see the tax increase that we had, it's not the same percentage that you see at the S-Pump. It's even lower. Because of the level of competition, that was the factor I was mentioning about.
But that's what was said.
Yeah.
But,
you could see that and also the OMCs, anytime we have got the price going up, we lose volume. And in fact, this business is economies of scale kind of thing. So you realize that at that point, the OMC does not want the volume to go so down. It's affecting because he invests in acquiring the fuel, and nobody buys it, and becomes a problem for him. So at that point, we have to lose our margin, which is very bad. The moment you push your margin in, you compromise on safety, you compromise on quality.
So if I understand what you have said so far, the only way that consumers could have to pay less for fuel will be when government decides to perhaps let go of some taxes.
Oh yeah, basically, when it goes, it's
because all the other parameters, like you mentioned, they are fixed.
They're fixed. Yes, that's it.
But we know that government doesn't just easily.
Exactly, it's because of the way our tax structure is the country. Because it looks like for government really needs money to do other things, and the easiest way that you can get money to do that is through the utility, because everybody uses it.
Mr. Samoa, you are with COPEC. I mean, COPEC is supposed to be speaking for us, the consumers. From all the parameters you mentioned, they look pretty fixed. If you even talk about the fluctuation, the performance of the city, or performance of our city against other major trading currencies, we can't really bank our hopes on that as a determinant of whether or not we pay more for our fuel. What really is there for the consumer?
In fact, Gipsy, this is a very useful platform, and I'm praying that at the end of a year, most Ghanaians will be adequately informed about what really fuel pricing and their issues are. COPEC has, over the period, always insisted that all the three determinants of fuel pricing or export pricing in Ghana work against the consumer. And it is quite interesting that we are getting to that point rather sooner than later. If you look at international market prices, OPEC and its member countries and non-OPEC countries have done all they could, sometimes to increase fuel prices or reduce crude prices or reduce production or cut production to force prices up. But geopolitical or international factors or determinants are things beyond our control as a country. So whatever Trump does, whatever Iran does, whatever Saudi would do, whatever Russia would do, would hit the Ghanaian directly, whatever they do. If their actions lead to, say, what we saw recently in Saudi, where almost 5% of global production was knocked out, and for which prices have to go up, the Ghanaian consumer will have to bear the brunt directly, because we are becoming more or less price takers because we don't refine fuel in Ghana. And then again, the cedi dollar is something that, like Mr. Ajimendia indicated, only the central government would have some latitude or some control over same. Unfortunately, in a lot of the times, what you realize is that the cedi rather depreciates and hardly does it appreciate. And so if the argument or if the parameters is such that when the cedi appreciates, Ghanaians will pay less, and when it depreciates, will pay more, and in most instances you find depreciation, then clearly, again, the second parameter is also set against the consumer. The third parameter, for which we have also argued, that government should be given a certain cap by Parliament, a certain maximum threshold beyond which you cannot tax petroleum products. If, let's say, we agree that of a total of 10 cedis per gallon of petrol, government should not do more than a quarter, which is 25%. I'm quite certain that governments today, governments 20 years, governments 100 years to come, would be limited in their arbitrary decisions as to when they pass on taxes and when they don't. Until we get to a point where we restrain some of the arbitrariness as far as passing of taxes on petroleum products are concerned, until we get to that point where there's some restraint, politicians would be in opposition and promise heaven on earth. When they come to power, the first 1 month, 2, 3 months, if you are lucky, they'll reduce by 2%. Then, because there's still the arbitrary exercise of that discretion that says that the finance minister at will can impose taxes. He goes to Parliament and new taxes are introduced, old taxes are increased. Then eventually all the three parameters, key parameters, only end up working against the consumer, and it doesn't look as though there is any respite for you and I in the country. It doesn't look as though we are going to see petroleum prices drop to points that Ghanaian consumers will be comfortable with, because we've set three standard parameters, all of which work against the consumer at any material time. What happens is this, Gifty.
At least we're having this conversation, and hopefully, you know, the consumers will be able to pick up a thing or two so they understand how it works. Hopefully that will ease, you know, the anguish. I'm not sure if it will, but I'll come to you for the takeaway. What you think viewers should take away from this conversation. But let me take yours first, Ms. Ajimandria. At least we're starting this conversation, hopefully to get information out there to people about the prices they're paying. Maybe that will help. Like I said, what is your take for those who are watching? What do you think they should take away from this conversation we've had?
I think they get to understand those parameters which seem to impinge on the fuel pricing, and they will know, as publicly, they will know where to tackle. Many more often than not, like he said, politically, people come into power, they always promise they could do, but the government does not even import 1 liter of fuel. Government does not import 1 liter of fuel in the country, let alone controlling the price. So it's something that Ghanaians will be well informed, and they know where to tackle and where we can put in. Sometimes people ask questions like, the taxes are gone up, what is the OMC doing to help them? OMC cannot do anything. We only collect the taxes and pay back to the government. That's what we do.
Okay.
And we do that without even getting any fee from the government.
Okay.
We have other issues then. So
you want the viewers to understand this part
Exactly.
of the story
Yes,
as well.
exactly.
Well, hopefully as we go along, we'll get to talk about the others that are connected.
Yeah.
Safety, how can you use your fuel efficiently, and then we can also talk about the framework, which we've touched a little bit on as in this conversation. Duncan, Mr. Moa, as we wrap up again quickly, what should viewers take away from this conversation we started?
Viewers should join in the conversation every now and then, because these are matters that affect their pockets directly.
Sure.
We are concerned about how much fuel sells in Ghana, and even more concerned about the threat of fuel prices increasing any day. Okay. Unfortunately, over the past, it's increased on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. And so you cannot even tell when it's going to increase. We must, as a country, begin to move towards a certain predictable pricing regime situation, though deregulated. If there's a way to even hedge such that prices can be a bit stabilized or stable for 6 months, people can be able to plan their lives around their fuel expenditure. But unfortunately,
we're not
the current deregulation program and the current parameters we have as far as fuel pricing is concerned only points to the upward bound at every point in time. And so you wake up and in 3 or 4
we'll have to wrap it up there, Mr. Moa, because we've run out of time, but we'll certainly touch on it again the next time that we talk about My Fuel, which is obviously a segment we're putting in to get people to understand this. But thank you so much for your time. Duncan Amoah is Executive Director of COPEC, and I've just been having this conversation as well with Ms. Hajimandria, the Chief Executive of the Association of Oil Marketing Companies. Ms. Hajimandria, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.